Hi all, this is Deepak. Hope you all are doing well. Today in this video we are going to cover very interesting and trending topic, which is like how to create full stack application using React.js as a front end, Spring Boot as a backend, and MySQL as a database. In this video on front end side, we are going to create our front end application using React.js, and in that we are going to use React table library. And using this React table library and hooks and functions available in it, we are going to create a table and populate the data in the table. And we are also going to implement some key features or functionalities like searching, sorting, and pagination on the front end side. On the back end side, we are going to create our Spring Boot application, and in that we are going to implement all the CRUD operations using REST API. Our backend application will connect with MySQL database, and on MySQL on database side, we are going to create a database and tables which are required to build this full stack application. This video is going to be very interesting and useful because we are going to cover many functionalities, like we are going to create full stack application, we are going to implement CRUD operations, we are going to use REST API, we are going to create database and tables on MySQL side, and on front end side we are going to use React table library and populate the data and columns using React table library, and we are also going to implement key features like searching, sorting, and pagination on the front end side. And apart from that, we are going to use all the latest versions of the technologies in order to build this full stack application. So latest version in the sense, the close to latest versions we are going to use in order to build all these functionalities. So in that sense, we are going to build a complete customer system full of functionalities. So I will request you to please watch this video from start to end so that you will not miss anything in between. The points which we are going to cover at high level, like first we'll see the introduction, in which I will showcase you the user interface and running functionality, so that you will visualize how our application will look like once we build and run into the browser. Next thing we are going to cover as an architecture. In this I will showcase you the customer system architecture, and in that, like, I will show you all the subsystems involved in it, like our customer web, customer service, and the database part. All these subsystems I will show you in architecture part. Next point, we are going to create our backend application using Spring Boot application, and our backend application name will be customer-service. In that we are going to implement all the CRUD operations using REST API. Finally, we are going to create our front-end application using React.js, and our front-end application name will be customer-web. And here we are going to create our React table and implement all the functionalities as like searching, sorting, pagination. And apart from that, we are going to call the APIs using axios library and see the end-to-end flow. Like our customer web will connect with our customer service, and through customer service we are going to connect with database, and we will see how the data is getting flown from browser till database and to and fro, like from database to browser as well. So we are going to see all these functionality end to end, and all these points we are going to see in this video. At backend side, we are going to create our customer service using Spring Boot, and these are the points which we are going to cover in sequence. First, we will create our database and table in MySQL using XAMPP. You can use either XAMPP or MySQL Workbench in order to create a database and table in MySQL. Here we are going to use XAMPP. Next point, we are going to create our Spring Boot application, and we will add all the dependency within that and create our Spring Boot application. Next thing, we will configure our MySQL database in Spring Boot application, and next, like, we are going to implement all the CRUD functionality in order to store or fetch data from the MySQL database. Finally, we are going to test our CRUD APIs using Postman and verified data or response in Postman as well as in MySQL database. So all these points we are going to cover in our backend while we are going to create our backend application. Next point, while we are going to create our front-end application, we are going to create this customer web front-end application. In that, these are the points which we are going to cover. Like first we will create our React.js front-end application. Next we are going to create table using React table library, and using this library we are going to implement all these um, functionalities like search, filter, sorting, and pagination. And again we are going to populate the table with columns and data using this React table library functions and hooks. Next point, like we are going to implement the APIs, and we are going to integrate the same from front end to the back end. So the points, like we will first integrate our get API. Next, like we are going to implement the search, filter, sorting, and pagination using functions and hooks available in React table library. And next we are going to implement the post API. Next we are going to implement update API, and we are also going to handle some error scenarios for a particular case. And finally we are going to implement the delete API. We are also going to test our application using UI browser and verify the result and responses in the database, as well as we can cross check in the browser side as well. It's an end-to-end data flow from browser to database and database to browser. We will cross check whether the same data is getting stored into the database, and the all the data which is present in the database will get rendered into the browser side. So all these functionalities we are going to cover on the front end side as well as on back end side. So as I discussed, all these functionality we are going to implement from scratch. So these are the prerequisites for our application. In order to build this full stack application, what all things we require, like we need VS Code, Spring Tool Suite, and these are the versions. It can be plus minus somewhere, but it should be, I'm using these versions in order to build this full stack application. On front end side we are going to use React 18.3.1, React Table 7.8.0, and axios 1.7.2. On backend side I am going to use Java 17 version, Spring Boot 3.2, and Maven 3.9.6. And there are other tools like exam control panel I am going to use in order to create database and table on MySQL side. And we are going to use Postman in order to test our backend APIs. And this is our architecture diagram. Like we are going to build our complete customer system, and these are the various subsystems in that. Like we are going to create our customer web on the front end side using React.js. In that we will implement all the functionalities and create table using React table library, and we are going to use axios in order to call the REST APIs from the client application. We are going to use HTTP protocol, and on the backend side this is our customer service which we are going to build using Spring Boot, and in that we are going to implement all the REST APIs and CRUD functionality. We are going to use ORM, and through which we are going to connect with our MySQL database, and we will create database and tables, respective table within this MySQL, and verify the data flow from browser or UI till database, whether it is coming as expected or not, and all the CRUD functionality data we will check and verify on database side as well as on browser side. So this is about the entire customer system which we are going to build. So without further ado, so let us jump into the coding. So first point, like we will first create our backend application, and in that we first need to create a database using MySQL. So here we are going to use XAMPP control panel in order to create a database. Now this is the interface of the XAMPP. Let me open it. Fine. Now these are some existing databases. Now let me create one system. So let me delete this. Okay, so let me create one new database, like with name customer DB. and here we can create table name which is customer, and we are going to mention number of columns. Here we are going to add our customer ID first, and here we can use uh, like serial, and here we are going to use as an auto index. Next thing, we are going to add name. Here we are going to use varchar. We can define some length, like let's say 250. We are going to use email, and same we are going to use varchar. We can define some length like 250, and here we are going to use our balance column balance, and here we can say it, we can keep it as a int, and we can find, we can create the table now. Fine, we can create the table now. We can save it. So you can see the customer table is created successfully with columns like customer ID, name, email, and balance. Now what we have done, like we have created this customer DB database, inside which we have created one customer table with columns like customer ID, which is a primary key, email, name, and balance. Fine. Okay. Now we are done with our database and table creation on MySQL side. You can either use XAMPP control panel or MySQL workbench in order to create the database table in MySQL. Next thing, like we can create our application. So let me change the workspace. So we can use this third option, like create new Spring Starter project, and here we can mention our project name. We are going to create customer system. In that we are going to create backend service with name customer service, build as a Maven, packaging as a jar, Java version as a 17, and here we can mention com.customer as a group, and here artifact customer service we will keep as is, and here we can mention description like customer service application, and here we can add our com.customer as a package. We can cross verify it once and click on next. Here we need to add the dependency, like we need Spring Web JPA repository, we need MySQL driver, and we need Lombac for getter setters. Fine, these many dependency is required. Now we can click on next, can click on finish. The project is getting imported. You can open this form.xml file and cross check all the dependencies. Under dependencies, here we can see all the dependencies added. This Spring Data JPA we can use in order to create entity and repository through which we can connect with our database. And here we are going to use the Spring Web, with which we can create our REST controller and mapping, get mapping, post mapping, and delete mapping, patch mapping kind of annotations we can make use of. And there are other annotations as well which we can use in order to create our REST APIs. And also stereotypes components we can use using this dependency. Through this driver, MySQL driver, we can connect with database, and using Lombac we can remove the boilerplate code and achieve getter setters through less code. Fine, this is about the dependency. Now let us build our project using run as maven install command. We can comment out the test class for now. First we can build it using maven install. Yes, we can see build is success. Now we can run our application using run as Spring Boot app. Okay, so now we have added the MySQL. Now it is by default pointing to our in-memory database, which is MySQL, which is a S2 database, and we have added this dependency. Now we need to configure the database part so that it will run successfully. So let us add the configuration part. Let me change the port first. Now by default it is using 8080, so let me change it to 808587. Next we can add our database related properties at here, like spring.datasource.url we can add first. We can use jdbc and MySQL. We can say localhost and 3307, and here we can say our database what we have created is an customer db. The database, this database we have just created inside our, we can see this is our customer underscore db database which we are going to point to. Fine, this is about the url. Here it should be equal to. Fine, next thing we can add username, and we are going to use username like, let's say day1 or something like user1, and we are going to use password like user1 @123, or we can use our root password same as for this one, and we can remove the password for now. If you want, you can put. Now we can use next thing like spring dot data source dot we can say driver class name we can add, and here we can mention our driver. com dot mysql dot cj driver, we can add this. Fine. And we can add this ddl auto as a true, and we can add spring.jpa dot show sql as a true, so that we can see the running or executed queries in console. So this is about the configuration of database for MySQL. So this is our database customer DB, and this is the port. You can see this port. You can go it configuration it here. You can see my.ini, and here you can search for port. Here you can see it's a 3307. The same port you can use. Fine. So this is about the database configuration. Now let us start adding our actual packages inside this. We can save it first. Now let us check by running this. We can see the build is success now. Now let us run our application and check. Okay, so here it's not true, rather it should be update. Fine. DDL auto should be update. Fine, we can rebuild it. And we can run it now. Now we can see our application has started successfully on port 8087. Fine. Now let us create the packages which are required in order to create our all the components. Now first we can see create our entity package. Next we can create service package. Next we can create a repository, and finally we are going to create our controller package. Fine. Let us create the respective component or classes within this. First we can add our customer entity, and here we can add all the required annotations. All our constructors, we can add data, and here is our builder. We can import this, and here we can add the attributes, like let's say private long customer ID. Next we can add private string name. We can add two more properties like let's say email, and here we can mention integer as in balance. Fine, we can save it. We need to add one more thing, like we need to add id annotation, and next, like we need to add generated value, and here we need to add strategy, and we can add strategy like generation type, and we can say add to, and we can import for id. Fine, we can save it. So we are done with our entity customer. Now let us create our repository interface, and our repository, we can name it like customer repository. Here we can add our repository annotation, and we can extend, let's say CRUD repository. Here we can add our customer, and here we can pass our id data type, which is long, and we can add necessary imports. We are done with our repository part with this. Now let us add our service interface first, which is a customer service. Now here we can add all the required methods in order to, first we can add, let's say get all customers method, which will return all the customers or list of customers. Next we can add one method to return a particular customer on basis of what id, input id we are going to pass. Like let's say it's a customer id as an input, and on basis of that it will return the particular customer object. Here we can add one more method as the add customer, and here we are going to add input customer into the database. Similar way we can add one more method for update customer, and this is the updated customer we are going to update into the database. And finally we are going to add delete customer, and using delete customer we are going to return the string for delete customer, and this is the actual customer which need to be deleted from the database. Now let us add our implementer class in order to implement all these methods, and we can name our implementer class as a customer service IMPL. We can annotate it using stereotype service annotation, and we need to implement our service interface, which is like customer service, and we can add import. Now here we need to provide implementation for all the methods which are there in the service. Now let us add all the unimplemented methods, and these are the default implementations. Now we need to add actual implementation for all these one by one. First of all, we need to inject our repository in service. Let's say our repository name, it's a customer repository, and here we can add. Fine. Now let us provide the implementation for all the methods. Like we can call method on repository. First we are going to get all the customers using find all method. Now we need to cast it to list of customers. Fine. Next thing, like we can call find by id method, and this find by id method is returning optional. So here we are going to pass the customer id, and this method is returning optional, so we need to call specific get method on it, so that we will actually get the customer object on that. Next thing, like, we are going to save our customer input customer object into the database, and similar way we are going to update our updated customer, which is inputted here, into the database. Now finally we are going to delete our customer by using delete method, and here the delete method is returning, if you look at it, it's a wide return type, so we should prepare some string and return it. Let's say customer is deleted for customer id, we can add it, and here we can add customer dot get customer id. Fine. So this message will be returned on successful deletion of the customer. Okay, fine. So with this we are done with all the necessary implementation of the service methods. Now let us create our actual controller class. Here we can name our controller class like it's a customer controller, and inside this, for this we can annotate like REST controller. Inside this we need to inject with our service component, we need to inject like which is customer service. Next we are going to provide first we are going to call the get mapping, and for this get mapping method we are going to pass the endpoint. Let's say we are going to use customers endpoint, and here we are going to return the list of customer, and we can change the method name as get all, let's say customers, and here we don't need to pass anything, and we are going to call the service method on service object, and here we can call like get all customers, we can call, and we need to add import. Fine. Now here it is returning list of customers, so instead of returning list of customers, we can return the response entity, which is always good, because with the response entity we can store the status codes as well in case of any failure or other scenarios, or we can wrap our return type inside that response entity as well. So it is always good to wrap our return response into the response entity. We need to provide the imports for this one. Fine. We are done with our first API, which will return all the customers. Now next we are going to return a particular customer based on what ID customer ID is getting passed. Now here we are going to return a particular customer, so list we can remove. Here we can change the name of the method like get customer, let's say, and here we can pass our path variable. Inside this we can add this customer ID, and here we can say what is the input customer ID, and we are going to call this get customer, and here is our input customer ID. We can pass it here, and we can save it. So this API will return a particular customer based on what input ID customer ID we are passing. Next thing, like, we can implement our update API. So for update we are going to use patch mapping, and we are going to pass the actual ID, as well as we need to pass the actual object. Let's say first we need to change our method name, update customer, and here we need to pass the request body as well. And for request body we are going to pass input customer, updated customer object, and we also need to pass the customer ID against which this updated customer will get updated in database. Now we can add all the necessary imports. Now here we need to call this update method, and we are going to pass the actual updated customer object to this update customer service method. Okay, with this we are done with our patch mapping. Let us add one more API for delete mapping, and here this is our delete mapping, and here we can change this method name like delete customer. We don't require the actual object, only the customer ID is enough in order to delete this. Now here, okay, fine. Here we need to do one more thing, like we need to first retrieve the customer object which is inside the database by using this method customer dot get customer. And once we get this object, we need to check if this is not null or kind. Then we need to set the attributes. No, here. Okay, fine. Now this is fine. So same way, first of all, for updation we need to make some changes, like this is we are calling, but before that we need to retrieve the customer object first, and then we can check if the object is not null, because input object as is we are not going to pass. Rather we need to modify it accordingly. First we are going to retrieve the object, and then that object we are going to update with the input object attributes, like we can call set balance, and we can take the balance from this input object it here, and we can call get balance. Fine. Next thing, like similar way we need to set few more attributes, like set email. ID is already there, so we don't need to set the ID, and get email. And again, like we can set name, and we can call get name on customer it here. Now what we have done it here, so we have two input parameters. First is the updated customer coming from the UI, and this is the customer ID against which we are going to update this customer into the database. Now first we are going to retrieve this customer object from the database existing, and we are going to update this existing object with the new values or new customer object values. Okay, once that is done, this updated object we need to pass to our update method it here, and with this our updation will get completed. Fine. For delete mapping, we need to get the object first for this customer ID, then we can check. Here we can prepare some string like delete message, and which is null it first. Now we can set like this delete message. If the object is not null, then we need to delete that for delete API. So what we can do, like we can cut it, paste it here, and we need to pass this object which needs to be deleted. Fine. And here we can call our delete method on the service. Fine. Now whatever message the delete customer is returning, let's say on post successful deletion, it will send this message. So we need to store that message into this variable, and finally we need to return this variable. as a return type, and here we are going to change this return type as a string, and we can save it. Fine. So this is about delete. So we have implemented all the APIs on the backend side using REST API, and we are done with this. One more thing we need to add, like we need to add cross origin, because we will get the request from the browser, so we need to add this so that we will not get the request will not get blocked due to the cross origin issue. Now we can add some age. Fine, we can save it. So with this we are done with our customer backend application customer service with all the APIs as such. Now we are done with our this point, like backend related activities we have completed with. Now next thing, like we are going to create our front end application and implement all these points. We can stop this and we can build it again, because we have made many code changes. So we can build this using maven install, and we can run it using run as Spring Boot app. Now we will keep running our application, and the port number we are using 8087. Fine. Now what next thing we can do, like we need to create our front end application now. So let us go to our front end application. And here we can create our front end application. Let me close the existing VS Code first and reopen the new VS Code instance. Here what we can do, like we can create our new front end application using command npm create wait at the latest, and here we can provide our actual front end application name, which is like customer web. We can select React and JavaScript, and we can go to our project folder, which is like customer web, and we can install the dependencies using command npm install. So we are done with npm install. Now let us run our application using command npm run dev. We can see this project folder is created with all the default files and folders, and our application is running fine. We can see this count. Okay, fine. Now let us do one thing, like first of all we can clear everything from the existing files so that we can make a new start. So let us clear everything from this app.jsx first. Content, unused variables and unused imports as well, and we can save it. Next thing, like for CSS, we can again clear this, we can save it, and inside index.html we can remove this logo, existing logo, and here we can write our actual full stack with React, JS, Spring Boot, and MySQL. We can save it. Now let us start adding our actual code inside this one. Now first of all, we need to add all the dependency which are required. So we are going to install the modules, like we are going to use the React table first and then axios in order to call the APIs. So we can cross check in our package.json, and we can see all the modules which are required are presented here. Now let us create our component. First of all, we can create our main div, like we can say it's a main container. Inside this, we can add our header, and header we can copy from here. This is the same, like, and we can add it here. Next thing, we are going to add our search panel. So we can give class name as a search panel. And next thing, like, we are going to add the table, and for table we can give class name as a table itself. Fine, and we can save it. Now we can add some minimum CSS for this one. To start with, main container search panel, and here is a table. Fine. Inside main container we can define some width, like let's say 565 pixel somewhere, or 567 pixel. Next, height, fit content, and you can say margin left as an 30 pixel. You can save it. Here we can add border as a 1 pixel solid. We can define width. We can add height, let's say height 40 pixel we can add, and we can save it. Let us run our application so that we can see it running. The changes we can see it running. Fine. Now we can add our table related properties, like we can add this. We can add width and height, we have added already. Okay, fine. We can add border as well, and we can add margin top, let's say 15 pixels somewhere, and we can say height, we can add something related 300 pixel first. Fine, it seems good. Fine. Now let us add some controls within the panel. First, we are going to add input search. Here we can say it's input search, and again here we can add the same. Here we can give class name as in search input, and here we can add some placeholder as search customer here. Fine, we can save it. Now we need to add one more thing it here, like we can add one button in order to add the customer, and we can give some class name as add btn. We can save it. Fine. Now we can add some css part for this one. Let's say here we can add search input. We can add border. We can add border radius as an 5 pixel, and width we can make it like 250 pixel, or we can make it 200 pixel. Fine. And margin left as an 5 pixel. Fine. And we can make some height as an 25 pixel. Seems good. Similar way we can add for add btn. Here we can add and we can add font size as an 15 pixel and line height as 15 pixel. We can save it, and we can say float right, and here we can add margin right as an 5 pixel. Save it. Now here we can make this like 87 pixel. Seems good. And here we can make its font size as 13 pixel, and here we can add margin top is a 5 pixel. Seems good. Similar way we can edit it here. Fine. Now here search input we can seems good. Now let us add some color as well. Now for search panel we can add some background color as, let's say, we can save it. Fine. For search input we can add some background color. Fine. For we need to add h3 header, and we can say text align as a center. We can save it, and here we can add color as an, and we can save it. Fine. It seems good. Now for this table, now okay, so for this button as well we can set some color like background color. We can set, let's say, green, and we can change it. Fine. Fine. Seems good. Now let us add our table attributes here. Inside table we have two main things, like first is a t head and next is a t body. So these are the two main tags, and inside this for rows we are going to use tr in t head as well as in t body. We are going to use tr for creating rows. Fine. Now inside this tr for t head we are going to render the headers, and inside t body we are going to render the data using td. Fine, you can save it. So this is the general structure we used to follow everywhere, or in common we used to follow this structure. Now there is nothing new. Now the actual things we are going to add into this, we are going to use the React table library and hooks and the functions available in it into it in order to create the table, as well as in order to populate table, and further we will implement the functionalities. So first thing, we need to import the hooks from our React table library, and the hooks here we can say it's a use table. So we can keep adding the hooks as on when we need more hooks. So for now we can start with React table. We can import for star as React from it's in React. Fine, can save it. Now here we in order to create a table we require columns and data. So we can create constant for columns, and we can use react dot use memo. Here we are going to use, like, let's say, in order to create constant headers columns, we need to follow some structure, like we need to create the header first, and let's say here first is a customer ID, and next we need to add the accessor for this, like we can copy this, and this is the customer ID. So this is for a first column, and what is indicated, this is the header which is going to display on the UI, and this is the accessor through which we are going to access that column. That's it. This is for first column. Similar way we need to add 3 more columns. Now this is for a name, and this is for name, this is for email, and this is for email, and this is for balance, and we can add it same for balance, and we can save it now. Fine. Now we have created columns table. Here we need to initialize with a dependency array. Fine, we can create a data, and in order to create data we require the customer data which we are going to hold, right? So we can create one more constant for customers, let's say customers, and we can say set customers, and here we are going to pass use state. Inside this we are going to add array. Fine, so here we are going to use, so for data again we are going to use, let's say react dot use memo. Inside this we are going to use this, and inside this we are going to call this customers. We are going to set customer data, and here we need to initialize it with some dependency array. We can save it. Fine, now we can save it. So we have created the columns, customers object, and customers we have passed to the data. Now we need to create our actual table. Let's say table, and we can create use table hook. Inside this we can pass our columns, next our data, and data is what? Data is nothing but the customers, and we can complete this. So what all things we have created it here? First we have created columns, customers to store the customer related data, and this customer we have passed to the data, and this is the data which we are going to pass to the table. These are the columns, and these are the data which holds the customers, and this is our table variable. Now table has lot many features and attributes and functionalities. So it's an overhead to use the table variable. So rather we can use specific functions which we are going to use, like let's say we can use specific get table props, and next like get table body props. Next we are going to use header groups. Next like we are going to rows, and here we are going to use prepare rows. Fine. So we can keep on adding the functions as we need. Fine. Now these are the functions. Now we can use these functions into our actual table. So let us see now. Now you can watch it carefully how we can make use of these functions. So we can call our function which is like get table props it here first. Next thing like we are going to use header groups and call map on this header, and for each header group we are going to add the tr part here, and for each tr we are again going to add some function like hg dot get all header group props, and okay, here we are going to add the function. So this is for calling the functions, and we are going to add some key like hg.id. Fine. Next thing like we are going to call headers on hg, and we are going to map these headers, and for each column we can say we are going to render the headers. We can cut this headers and edit it here, and for each header we are again going to add some functions like we can call column dot get header props we can call, and here we can add the respective keys like let's say keys equal to, here we can add a column key dot id. Fine. Now here we are actually going to render our columns. Okay, so what we can say column dot render, and here we are what we are going to render, it's a header. And where is the header? Header is at here. Okay, headers. So these are the headers which will be shown on the UI. Fine. So these are the headers. Now we can save it. We can see it is showing the headers as expected. Seems good. Okay, fine. Next thing like what we can do now, similar way we can start adding our body part it here. Now for body we are going to use get table body props function, and so here is the get table body props. Now here for we can iterate on rows, and we can call map on, and for each row we are going to return a row, and inside this we can cut this row and edit it here. Fine. Now here what we can do here. Fine. Now for this tr, for each tr we are again going to add some functions like let's say row dot get row properties, and here we are again going to pass some key as let's say row dot id. Fine. Now so inside once for each row we need to prepare row first, call the prepare row. Inside this we can pass one row, and we can save it. Fine. Now for each td we are again going to pass some function and we are going to call get a row. Okay, fine. No, for td it's okay. So here we need to do first, like for row dot cells we can call map on cells, and here for each cell now we are going to render the data part. We can cut it and edit it here, and here we are going to again add our cell properties, like cell dot get cell properties, and we are again going to add some key, like let's say here we can add cell dot id, and here we are going to render the actual cell. So to render the cell we can call a cell dot render, and here we are going to pass our cell to render. Fine, you can see we can save it. Fine, so we have added the column as well as the data part into the, we have rendered the heads as well as cells. Now it should show the data for us. What we can do, we can first check if we have the data into the database. So now we can refresh it. So we can see there is no data, only the column headers it is showing. So here it is not showing in data, which is as expected. Now let us do one thing, like, so we have created these APIs, right? So we have not tested these APIs. Now let us test these APIs using Postman. So this point is missing, because that point we should have covered while creating the backend database. So here is our backend database functionality, and we need to test it using Postman. So now we can test it Postman first, and then we can see why the data, how we can render the data on the UI side. So let me open the Postman first. So right now what we are going to do, we are going to test our backend application REST APIs, and we are also going to add some few records into the table, which will get displayed on the UI side, because right now on UI side it is not showing any data because the table is empty. Okay, fine. Now let us add our get API, and here we can add, let's say, here we can say the port number, what port number we are going to use. We can go to our properties file and check. It's 8087. Fine. So here we can use 8087, and here is our customers endpoint, and here is our JSON part. We can send it. You can see it is showing the empty array because we do not have any data in the database side, so which is as expected. Now let us do one thing, we can call the post API and add some data. Here we can call the post API, and here is our JSON part. Now we can copy some attributes, like we have customers. Let's say these we can copy and add into here. So here we can add name, and we can name it like Sanjay. For email we can write Sanjay's email, let's say sanjay@gmail.com, and for the balance we are going to add some balance, let's say 10,000. Here we need to complete this bracket. Fine. So let us add this and check whether it is getting added. Name, email and balance. So let us check what has happened. Post is not supported. Something like we need to check in our controller. So whether we have used a post mapping or not. Okay, so here we have used a patch mapping by mistakenly. So we need to use post mapping. Sorry, not it here. In fact, we have not added the post mapping. This patch mapping is fine, but we have created the gate API, two gate APIs, one patch API and one delete API, but we have not created our post API. So let us create that. It was missing, so we can create it using post mapping. Sorry, it was miss from my side. Okay, here we can add customer endpoint and we can use customer post mapping, and here we need to pass the request body as this, which we are going to pass into the database. And here we can add our add customer method, and here we are going to pass this input object. Fine. And we need to provide post mapping and import. Fine. Now let us rebuild it and check it again. Now it is running successfully. Now let us check this post mapping API. Now we can see it is added into the database successfully. Let us check now by refreshing this. We can see the first entry of Sanjay is there. Fine. So we can add few more records like Sanjay. We can add Sandeep and similar email ID like it's for Sandeep, and here we can add 11,000 sent. The second entry is created. We can add third like Sam. Not Sam, we can add something like John, and here we can create John's email ID, and we can add something 1 lakh. Yes, fine. We have added 3 records. We can add one more record like we can say it's a Peter, and here we can add Peter ID, and we can add somewhere it's 1,10,000. Fine. So we have created 4 records. Now if we call the get mapping, it should show all the 4 records. Yes, fine, it is showing 4 records. We can test one more API, get API, like we can add any customer ID, and accordingly instead of showing this array it should simply show this particular customer object. So let us check. Yes, it is showing this 4th object, customer ID. Fine. Now let us, we have added all this. Now let us check for patch mapping as well. So for patch mapping we need ID as well as the object which need to be updated object. We need it here, and we can add, we can use patch mapping to update, and here we need to add the customer ID and we need to update this object. Let's say instead of Peter we can add Kevin, and here Kevin's email ID, and we can say it's an 1,20,000. We can see it is updated successfully. Now let us check with using gate mapping. Yes, fine, it is updated with Kevin. If we check into the database now, it will show us 3 or whatever records we have added. It's 4 records and it is showing as expected. Now let us delete our API by using, now this record is for Kevin, So for delete API we can use the delete HTTP method, and here we can pass this fourth object which need to be deleted. It is for Kevin. Now we can say so customer is deleted successfully for customer ID 4th. Now if we go and call the get mapping methods, it should show only 3 records because 4th record we have just deleted. Fine, it is working fine. In database also, if we cross check, like it will show us only 3 records, which is as expected. Fine. Now let us go to our actual UI application and we can simply refresh it. Okay, fine. It is now showing the records because we have not called any API from here. So we need to call the get API first it here. Now let's say we can define one constant, and let's say get all customers we can call, and here we can say we can use our axios.get, and here we can pass our URL which is like HTTP localhost, and here we can pass our port number and actual our endpoint which is customers, and here we can call then, and we can pass response, and here we can first log our response like response.data, and the next like we can set customers with response.data. Fine, we can now here we need to import this axios. Fine, here now here what we can do, here we have defined declared one method, but we have not called it as of now. So we can use effect and call this method it here. Let's say we can copy this and edit it here, and here what we can do, we can initialize it with some dependency array. Fine, and we can complete it. Now let us check. Yes, we can see it is showing the data as expected. Now we have 3 records in database which is getting shown it here. Fine, which is as expected. Now let us apply some CSS so that it will look good. Now we have table, till table we have shown. Now after table we can add some header part, and here we can add some border like this one. Fine, now border radius is not needed, and this border is redundant as well, so we can say border collapse as an collapse. Fine, now we can add some font size, let's say 15 pixel, and line height as an 20 pixel. We can save it, or we can make it like 17 pixel. Seems good. Now what next we can do? Fine, this is about the header part. Similar way we can add for data part, and here we can define for data we are going to use it like 12 pixel, and this is as 17 pixel. We can save it. Fine, here for table we have defined the height, so we can remove it and say fit content, and we can save it. Now we can check. Fine, seems good. Now for header part we can use 15 pixel and 20 pixel. It seems good. Now here we can use 15 and 17 combination, and we can check. Okay, or here we can use 18 pixel. Fine, seems good. Fine, now let us add the color it here. Let's say background color, and here we are going to add. Fine, and for TD part also. Okay, not for TD, let us add some even row. So for TR we can use n child, and for some even rows we can add some color. Let's say what background color we can choose. We can use this, and let's just check. Fine, seems good. Now this is the background color for even rows. Fine. Now next thing, like we have shown this data, we have implemented get API. Now let us implement the post API as well, so that we can add multiple records and show the pagination part. Now let us do that. So here, in order to add, first of all, we need to create on click of this add button, it should open the pop-up first. Okay, so we can add that part first and then provide the implementation for submit. Here is our add button. We can say on click, you can say open pop-up, and for opening pop-up we can, here we can define some constant, and here we can call this, and we can set we are going to define one constant at here first, like constant, and here we can say is model open, set is model open, and here we are going to use state, and initially it is false. Fine. Now we can set here for opening we are going to set it as a true, so that it will open the pop-up. Okay, fine, we can save it. Now we need to show this pop-up at somewhere. So what we can do, before the table starts, we can show this pop-up. You can say is model open, and here we can return this div, and we can close this div, and we can name class, we can give class name as an add edit, let's say pop-up div, or we can say pop-up. You can say add pop-up. Fine. Now here save it. Now we can add something at here. For add pop-up, we can define some width, let's say 300 pixel. Next, like height 300 pixel, and we can set z index as 1, so that it will appear first. Fine. Next thing, like fine. What next we can do? So it is getting opened a pop-up, but we have not set border for that. We can add some border, 1 pixel solid. Fine. We can see the border. Now we can add some element within this. So this is our pop-up div. Now we can add, first for close button we can add some span, and we can add it at here, like it's a times, and here we can give class name as close button. Next we can add one header, h4 header, and we can say it's a customer detail. Fine, seems good. Now we can add some CSS for this one as well. Let us add it here, close button, and here we can say float right, and font size we can add, let's say 25 pixel. We can add margin left, we can say margin right as in 5 pixel, seems good, and font width you can say bold, fine. Similar way we can add for h4, and here we can say text align center. Next thing, like we want margin top as in 5 pixel, fine, and border 1 pixel solid. Now we can add border ds as in 5 pixel, we can save it. Next thing, we can add margin left somewhere 15 pixel, margin right as in 25 pixel, and we can save it. Seems good. Now we can add the background color as well. Let's say background color we can add, okay, fine. So for pop-up we can add background color, seems good. Now we can add one div inside this to add the name or email of our balance. So let us do one thing here. After this header, we can add one more div as, and we can give class name for this one as an pop-up div, and inside this we can add one input. First of all, we need to add one label, and we can set its a name, and we can give name. Next thing, like we can add input text, and here we can say name. We can give class name as an pop-up input, fine, and we can save it. Now we can, here we can add one line break, seems good. Now we can add some CSS for this one as well. Let's say we can add one pop-up div, and here we can add some margin left as an 15 pixel, seems good. Now we can add for pop-up input, and here we can add font size as an 15 pixel, and here width we can mention to 50 pixel. Let us check, and we can say it should be 185 pixel, and we can add border and border radius, save it, and we can add height like 25 pixel, seems good. We can add some background color, like let's say this one, okay, fine. Now we can add two more divs for, this is for name, this div is for name. Similar way we can add for, this is for email, and here we can this is for balance, customer balance, we say it's a balance, okay. We can save it, seems good. Now we can add one line break, and after that we are going to add one button, and here we can add button, and we can name it like add customer, and here we are going to put some class name, add, let's say add customer, fine. We can provide some CSS for this one, like let's say add customer. We can add margin left and border, now we can add some Seems good. We can add some background, like let's say background color, we can keep it here, so we can use the same background color of add button. So this is our background button, we can add this it here. Fine, seems good. Now we are done with our pop-up in order to add or update customer. This pop-up we are going to use for adding or updating the customer for both way. Now it is not clickable, we need to add some handle for this one. Let us add that. This is our span. Here we can use on click, and we can see it's a handle close function. We are going to add it here. Here instead of true we are going to add false. Save it. You can see it is getting closed. Fine. Now okay, this close button, see this close button, which is this close button, we can add this color as a red because it is going to close this one. Fine. Now next thing what we can do, we can implement our add API, like we can add some customers. For that we can implement our add API. For that what we can do, on click of add customer we can add some on click event, and here we can say handle submit, and here we can use our constant and handle submit, and here we are going to use and copy this. Here we can use our async, and here we need to use await because we are going to add it into the database, and instead of get we are going to use post because we are going to add our customer. URL will be the same, and here we need to pass some object. So whenever we click on this open and enter something at here, these values we need to capture in some object. So what we can do, we can write one object here, let's say here constant, and here we can say customer data, or here we can say set customer, and here is our data. And here what we can use state, like inside that we can use name, and here we can blank, and email again we can add blank. And next thing is a balance, and we for balance again we can add blank. Fine, seems good. Now what next we can do, we need to add this customer data it here. Okay, it here, but we have not set anything into the customer data. In order to set something into the customer data, we need to set the values at here, like we have these input fields. For name, let's say we can add a value, and here we can set, let's say customer data dot name, and again we can on change of the text here. Say if we are changing the text, accordingly it should set the data. So we can call on change, and on change we can set let's set data. Fine, or set customer we can say. Fine, and here we can call the set customer constant method it here, and here we are going to call like set customer data, and here we are going to set customer data, and next like we have e dot target dot name, and here we are going to use e dot target dot value, and here we can save it. Fine. Now with this, like it will set whatever value we enter it here into the respective name, email, and balance. Okay, fine. So this is like we have added for name. Similar way we need to add for email. Here is input for email, and we can say it's a email, and this is for our balance, and here we can set balance, and we can save it. Now let us check here for our submit. We have passed the customer data. Next thing, like here, first of all, what we can do here, we can say e dot prevent default, we can call, can save it. Now here we don't need to set the customer data. Okay, fine. Let us check. Now let us paste this. Now let us add. Here we can add the record like let's say Robert, and email ID is robert@gmail.com, and here balance we can set like 50,000 and add customers. Now we need to check it on the browser what is happening it here. Okay, so what we can do, handle submit, where exactly we are calling it here, add customer, and handle submit is it here, customer data again we are calling, fine. So we can try to add from here. Let's say here is our, we can give some name like let's say Shaurya, and we can add email, balance let's say 50,000. Now we can add customer. We can see, okay, the Shaurya is getting added, and again Robert, we can refresh it. We can see the record is getting added, but the pop-up is not getting closed, and only after a refresh it is getting shown. So let us do one thing, like once we submit and post successful submit, we need to close the pop-up first. Okay, so we can call it, and next thing, like we need to show the latest list. So what we can do here, we can call get all customers, so that on close of pop-up it will come up with the new list. Okay, fine. Now let us check by adding one more record, like let's say here we can add, instead of Robert we can say Kevin, we can add Kevin, and here we can add 60,000 somewhere. Now we can see Kevin is getting added, pop-up is getting closed, and even we don't need to refresh, and this is as expected. Okay, fine. Now what we have done, like we have added this handle submit, with which we have added some records. Now let us add one more record so that we can start implementing our searching, sorting, and pagination part. Let's say we can add Sam. Instead of 60 we can use 70 and add customers. Yes, fine. Now we have somewhere 6-7 records. Now let us start implementing our UI features. Like first we will implement our uh, sorting logic. Okay, so what we can do, you can use sort by, we can use it here, we can copy it, and next thing we can add it into the hook. like this is our hook. Here we can edit it here, save it. Now what we can do next, like where we are rendering the column, at that place we need to add, yes, so this is our, we are rendering the column at here, and here we can call column dot get sort by toggle props. Fine, we can save it. Fine, now we can check this. We can see it is getting sorted by ascending and descending order. Same for name, same for email and balance as well. Fine, so it is getting sorted. Now let us show some arrow for ascending and descending order. What we can do next, here is our, here we can say it's a column dot, we can say is sorted, and if that is the case we can show some span. In that span we can see if column dot is sorted descending order, then we are going to show some up arrow, or else we are going to show down arrow. Fine, now in order to add up arrow and down arrow, we can use the import the icons, or we can use simply Windows colon, and here we can add some up arrow hit here, and similar way we can click on Windows colon and insert the down arrow it here, and we can save it. Now we can check it. Now it, for customers we can see the arrow is appearing as expected. For name also it is appearing, for email also, and similarly for balance also. Fine, it is getting sorted. With this, like we have implemented the sorting function, column sorting, with less code and using the functions and hooks available in our React table. Now next thing, we can use our searching part. We can use global filter, and here we can add this hook into it here. And next thing, like we need to set it here as well. We can set global filter. Fine, we can define one constant, let's say constant like we can say global filter, and here we can say it's a state, and we can add it here as well. Fine, now next thing, like we need to, here where whenever we enter some text, so data will get filtered out. So here is our input search. Here we can add this value as an, we can add global filter or the blank text, and here on change we need to add the event, and here we can say set global filter, and here we can pass e dot target dot value. Fine, and we can save it. Now let us check for this functionality. We can see global filter is working fine. For Sanjay name, yes, fine. And let's say for John, yes, it is working as expected. Fine. For, let's say for Kevin, yes, it is working as search is search filter is working as expected. So we can see with less code we have implemented the search filter as well by using this use global filter hook. Fine. So next thing, like we can implement the pagination for this one. So in order to use the pagination part, we are going to use again the hook for pagination, and we can add same it here. You can save it. Now what for pagination we need to show the buttons. So once our table is completed, now here we need to add one div, like let's say here is our div, and inside this we can name this class name, we can give as an, let's say, pagination div. Inside this we can add some buttons, and we can name it's the first, and we can give class name as an, it's a page div or page button we can say. And here similar way we can add 3 more buttons, and this is for first, and this is for previous, and this is for next, and this is for last. You can save it. Now you can see these buttons are appearing. We need to add some CSS so that it will look good. Now here we can add, okay, pagination div, we can add margin, let's say top as an 5 pixel, fine, and for dot page button we copy it. Here we can add border radius, and these things we can copy, and color we can do something. Now here we can mention it's the font size 10, we can save it, fine, seems good. And here color we can add some, let's say blue color, and here we can add, okay, or we can add colors within this one, okay. Seems good. Now next thing what we can do, we can, okay, so page median we can add some margin left as an 5 pixel, fine. Next thing, like we can add some width, let's say 50 pixel. Line height we can make it 13 pixel, seems good, fine. Now it is fine. Now what next we can do, we need to add some here page count and page index we need to add, like we are toward page index, so for that we can add, like here we can give page index edx, and Postman we can add page index of, we can say page count, fine. Now we need to add this page count and page index it here, and for page count here we can add page index, we can save it, fine. Now you can see it is appearing 0 1, right now the count is 1, okay. So here, okay, fine. So what next we can do, here we can see right now the default size, record size on per page, it's a 10 by default, so we can change it and make it 3 so that we can see the pagination. So what we can do it here, we can add that as an initial state, and here we can add page size, and we can mention how many records we want to be shown on per page. Here we can say 3, and once we refresh, okay, Now it is not getting reflected. Now here we are using the rows. We need to use page instead of rows, and we need to edit it here also, where we are iterating on rows. We need to use page because we are going to use pagination, right? We can see it is showing the 3 records per page, and now we have 7 records, 6 or 7 records. Now whenever we click on next button, it is not showing anything. So let us add that. Fine, here we can add next page and previous page, and we can add it into it here. Let's say on click it should show next page, and previous button on click it should say show the previous page. Seems good. We can see now we can click on next button, it's showing the next page, like, and for previous it is showing the previous page. Now whenever we are on the first page, it should show the it should disable the first and previous button disabled as such. So what we can do, we can on first page, let's say we can say disabled, and when we want to make to disable it, like can previous, if there is no previous page, then we want to disable it. Similar way for the next page, when there is no next page, we need to disable it. Okay, we can save it. Now we need to add it in our it here. Similar way we can say can next page, we can save it. Now let us check. Whenever we reach on first page, the first page is getting disabled. We need to disable the previous button as well, because we do not have previous page to show. And similar for the whenever we are on the last page, it should get applicable. So we can add this disable function logic at last page as well, and for the this set previous page, first page and previous page. Fine. Now here we can see we can save it. So here it should be previous page for previous, and so we can check if there is no previous page for first click or for first or previous button, then it should disable, as it is showing as a disabled one. And whenever we reach on the next or last page and we do not have any more page to show, it should be disabled. Let's say whenever we reach on the last page, next and last button is getting disabled, which is as expected. Now whenever we click on previous button, it is coming to the previous page, but whenever we click on first page, it is not showing the first page and last page. We need to add the logic for that as well. Let's say for last page we can say on click, and here we are going to call go to page, and here we are going to add our page count -1. Fine. And similar way for the first page, we are going to call it should be 0th index. Fine. And here it is showing whenever we are on first page, it should show the first page, right? So we can say page index, which is 0 plus 1. Now it is showing the first page. Fine. Now we need to add this go to page it here. Can save it. Fine. Now we can see this first and previous button is disabled. Whenever we click on next button, it is going to next page. Likewise, whenever we reach on last page, it is the next button and last button is getting disabled, because we do not have any more page to show. Now whenever we click on previous button, it will show the previous page, Likewise, whenever we reach on the first page, the first button and previous button will get disabled, which is as expected. Now whenever we click on last button, it should show the last page. Whenever we click on first button, it should show the first page. That's it. Now this functionality is working fine. With this we are completed our pagination functionality with all the buttons as we have discussed. Now let us implement our update part, update API. So this is our add customer. So whenever we click here, it is getting add customer. So here we need to add some action buttons. Set here, let's say here. Now we can copy it as is first, and here we can add first edit. Here we can add edit, and here we can add ID as well. And for ID we can add edit, and for accessor we can use edit. And after this we need to add our cell, and for cell we can say props, and for props we can add one button like this, let's say. And inside this we are going to, let's say this is the, we can give some name like edit button, and inside this we are going to give edit button name. So this is for edit button. Okay, now similar way we can save it and check what happens. Yes, it is showing. Now similar way we need to add for delete button. Fine. Now we can change it to delete. Similar way we can add for delete, and here we can use delete. Fine, we can save it. Now we can add some CSS part for this one, edit and delete. Let's say edit button, and here let's say we can copy from here and edit it here. Fine, edit button. Now we can make this as an 10 pixel and this as an 12 pixel. We can edit 13 pixel, you can check, or we can make it 14 pixel. Okay, now let us add similar way for delete button. Fine. Now for delete button, this is edit and delete button. We can make it as a 10 pixel and 12 pixel. Same, we can edit it here. Okay, seems good. We can add some width, like let's say 67 pixel. For edit, no, we can add 57. Fine. Now it seems good. So for table we can say align, text align center. Fine, seems good. Now it seems good. We have edit button and delete button. Now here what we can do, we can make it like 50 pixel and check. Seems good, and same for it here. Okay, for red button we can add some red color, like and we can use Fine, seems good. Now okay, now next thing, like what we can do, whenever we click on edit button, it should open the pop-up and show populate the values for the row which we have clicked. So this, to achieve this, what we can do, like here is our edit button, and here we can say on click, here we are going to call handle, let's say handle update, and here we are going to pass this props dot, we can access cell on it, and through cell we can access a row, and through row we can call original, we can pass this row, so that, okay. So for handle update we can add some function, like let's say here we can define on constant and handle, here we can pass this customer object it here. And what we can do, first we need to set customer data with this customer object, and next we can open the pop-up and we can save it. Now we can click on edit. Yes, we can see the pop-up is getting opened on what row we have clicked. Okay, fine, it seems good. Now next thing, like whenever, now we can see whenever we want to update, it is showing add customer. It should show only when we want to add, so we can change that label. Here it is the label, like here we have add customer. What we can do here, we can say customer data dot customer id. If there is a id for updation, then we can go for update customer. We can add this, save it. Fine, we can save it. Now let us check it here, we can see it is showing the update customer. Fine, seems good. Now we need to, whenever we update something at here, we need to submit that, right? So what we can do for that, we can call this submit. We should go to submit function, and here we can check if our customer data dot customer id is there, then go for updation, and we can call the update patch method it here for updation, and else if we can simply call add method, add customer method, and we can place it here. This is for add, this is for add, and this is for update. So for update we are calling patch method, and for updation we need to call our customer, we need to pass the customer id as well. Okay, so what we can do, we can change it at here, and here we can pass our customer data dot customer id. Fine, we require customer id as well as the modified data to be updated into the database. Okay, fine. What next? Fine, let us check what happens now. Now we can update this John. Now we can say instead of John, we can say it's something new name. We can give let's say Vijay, and here we can add Vijay, and salary we can give something like 1,10,000, and we can update customer. We can see the Vijay is getting updated successfully. Now the record is getting updated as expected. Okay. So whenever we click on add button, it is showing the last record. It is getting populated with. Now what we can do, we can clear the pop-up on our close button, pop-up close button. Here is a handle close. This is our handle close. Now here we can set our customer data, and we can set these values which are blank, and these are the blank values. It here we can copy it and edit it here, like set customer data, and fine, you can save it. So on close of pop-up we are setting these values as a blank. Fine. Now whenever we open the, we can refresh it, and we can see it is now. Now if you want to update something like with, instead of Sandeep, let's say Sandeep 2, and we can update Sandeep 2, and here we can add 0 and update. Now it is getting updated. Now whenever we click on add button, it is getting cleared. Fine, which is expected. And the add button message, add customer message is also showing. Now next thing, like we can implement the delete. So let us add our some validation part error messaging scenarios at here. So let's say, so whenever we do not enter anything and click on add customer, it should show some error message. So let us add some constant for showing the error message. Let's say constant, and here we can say error message, and we can set error message, and here we can use state as an blank at first. Next thing, like we can add our error message. So whenever here we can check, like if customer data dot name is not there, we can use this not negation, or customer data dot email is not there, or customer data dot balance is not there. So in that case we are going to set the error message. Now let's define some error message, and this is the blank, and here we can set this error message as, let's say all fields are required, all fields are required, and we can copy this error message and set to our error message it here, save it. Fine. Now here we can check, our first condition is like if error message dot length is equal to 0, means if there is no error message, in that case go for addition, and similar way for else case also there should not be any error message, right? So if there is no error, then go for updation. So this is applicable for both the addition or updation. And here we are going, we can say if there is a error, if there is a no error message, then close the pop-up, and if there is error message, then it should stay, it should show the error message on the pop-up. Okay, fine. Now here we can check, we click on add button, and okay, so here actually we need to show this error message at somewhere. So let's say here is our customer details, and here we can say error message is there, then we can show some span, and here we can show actual error message. That's it. And here we can give some class name as error, and we can add some CSS for this error, like let's say error, and here we can say color of this color is red for error. We can define red, save it. And error, we can say margin left, we can add somewhere which is similar for others, 15 pixel we can set. Fine. Now we can see here it is reflecting as expected. Fine, good. Now next thing, like whenever we try for edit, now it is getting populated whenever we click on edit button as well. So we need to clear the error message on click of close button. So here we can set error message as a blank, so that it should not keep on showing every time. It should show only when it is required. So here we need to refresh now. Now here, okay, now it is showing it here. Now if you go to update, it is not showing now, which is as expected. Now for updation, we can check if we remove something and try to update, it is showing all fits are required. And let's say we can go for update. Now it is showing as expected. Fine, it is working fine. The error scenario, error message handling is working fine. Now let us add the delete functionality. So similar way, here is our delete button. We need to add the on click functionality for delete button, and we can edit it here. And here instead of update, we can say handle delete, and here we can pass the same row. And for handle delete, we can add some constant, like let's say constant, and we can say it's a handle delete. And here we can add async, and here we can add our customer it here. And here first of all we can define some constant, like confirmation box we need to show window dot confirm. We can send here, we can say are you, let's say are you sure you want to delete, this is the question mark. And here we can check if you want to delete the record only, then go for deletion. And for deletion we can call this API. Now this is sorry, not this, we can call this update API, copy it here and modify it. Instead of patch, we can call delete. And here we can add the customer ID only, no data is required. And here we need to set the customers now, because our customer data is changed. Okay, so we can say here is a response dot data we can add, and we can set fine. We can set customers, like here we can check set customers, what we have defined customers. Okay, fine. So for delete method, what we have done it here. Okay, so this is the customer we are passing, and here same we need to use it here, customer dot customer ID we can take. So this is the confirmation dialog will appear whether we really want to delete the record. And if we click on OK, then it will go for deleting this customer for this ID, and the new response data will get set it here, and it will show the list. Fine. Now let us check. We can check it here now. Now let us say we can delete this second record. Pop-up is appearing. Okay, so we need to check why it is not. Okay, so let us check what has happened here. Okay, so record is getting deleted, but only after we refresh it. Okay, fine. So what we can do it here, we need to add window dot location dot reload we can use, so that we don't need to refresh the record. Fine, we can save it. Now we can check it here. We can delete this robot record. Yes, we can see robot is deleted successfully. Fine. If you want to delete some other record like say Sam, we can delete it. Yes, we can check Sam is deleted. Fine. It is working fine and as expected. So all the functionalities we have covered, which we have discussed before we start this video. Now let me recap what all things we have cleared. Now let us check in database as well. What how many like last record is Kevin. It should show the same into the database as well. So last is Kevin, right? So if we add something, let's say we can add something. Now let us check change this. Let us put this table some. We can add some margin bottom it here so that it should show up, and here we can show something 450 pixel. Fine. Now it is coming up fine. Now what we can do here, we can first check our searching functionality. It is working fine. We can check Sanjay. Yes, fine. Searching is working fine. Sorting is again working fine. It here from browser. Next thing, pagination is again working fine. Okay, fine. Now what we can do, we can add one record and check into the database. Let's say here we can add one record. It's Sai, and add some sai@gmail.com. It should be Gmail, and here balance we can add 4 lakh somewhere. Add customer, and we can go to last and we can see so is added successfully. Similar way, if you want to edit anything, and we need to cross check into the database for this one, so we can refresh it. Last record is successfully added. Now we can edit it, edit for some, let's say Kevin, and instead of Kevin we can add Tom, and we can update it with Tom, and here we can say instead of 60 we can say 70,000. Update customer, we can, yes, we can see it is updated successfully, Kevin to Tom. Yes. Now if you want, we can delete one record and we can delete the Tom. Yes, and we can see Tom is deleted successfully. We can check it at database side. Yes, we can see the deletion is also working fine. With this, we have completed all the functionality which we have discussed before we start this video, and we have covered all the functionalities which we have discussed and promised before we start this video. I hope that you must have enjoyed this video, and I will request you to please like and subscribe the same. And thank you so much for watching this video once again, and please like and subscribe the same. Thank you so much.